I've never known to this day whether people didn't hear the warning or didn't heed the warning.
And we had a look at the valley, and the valley had gone. What was there half an hour earlier, the whole valley had burnt out.
Sadly, as time went by on the Oval, we were getting word of local people who did lose their lives, and of course this was absolutely horrendous for all of us.
When you live in a community and yours is like one of the only houses in the street left, and for whatever reason you've still got a house and your neighbours haven't, there is a degree of separation.
The community had banded together. Everyone was out to help everyone. It doesn't matter where you turned, there were people helping everyone.
So how many people did you have on the street here?
There's probably 20, 25 different people that would have lived here with their families, about 8 families. With only three of the houses surviving, you know. It's certainly a lot different road. This was really picturesque through here, and of course nothing that we all as a family enjoyed more than walking up and down Factory Road. It's only a couple of kilometres long, the road. It's certainly got a different look about it now. Yeah, some people just, you know, even they come up here now, all these months after the fires, if they come up for the first time, they're still just absolutely blown away by what they see. So in the Churchill fires, what was known as the Churchill fires, which is, you know, mainly Traralgon South area, the Coligny area and Cornella and whatnot, the only real main bit of infrastructure that was publicly owned was the Coligny Hall, which literally stood right here. And there's another hall that was damaged in Geraldine North, but they're able to repair sections of it, I believe. But the Coligny Hall it survived 2 fires, and there was also further up behind the flagpole there was the old schoolhouse, which I know closed in 1993 or something. There was only like 7 kids left or something or other, and the school had just been restored, and the community had been working and getting it back to where it was originally, sort of in its original condition, and the Coligny Traralgon South playgroup, the kids would use it, and that was used a couple of times a week. And you know, with the hall, you had the CWA who'd been over 50 years of using the hall, and they were quite proud custodians of the hall. We also had up the other way up there, we had the fire shed, which we called the shed, but the plan is now that we've got this, you know, great opportunity in the sense that it's a blank canvas, and we want to really, you know, it was right from day one, we really wanted to build something that was going to be significant for our community to want to come back to, you know. And with the, you know, with the cricket club, they'd never really had facilities here that they could use, so we'll certainly be able to accommodate them a lot better. The CWA, the children's group, and there's the hall itself. Plus we're going to get a brand new fire station, not a shed anymore, a fire station, which is going to be sitting about right here. We've also taken the opportunity to move the road, because before we had the hall and all the infrastructure on one side and the oval was on the other side there. So now with the fires, and like I said, that we're having a blank canvas, we're going to move the road and take it around to the east elevation, which will push the hall and all the other joint buildings, we bring them all together and have them joining onto the oval there, which will be a beautiful setting once those trees grow back it should go out to tender any day now, and then hopefully we should have something finished by February, March next year. Black Saturday was an apt name because it was black. As the weeks rolled into months and you've got the odd friend saying to you, oh, hey, the fires are all over now, aren't they? It's all gone. But the trauma's still there. But with that trauma came, the adrenaline, a bit of mania, and I was unwell for a little while there. But I made sure that I had a good support network around me to make sure that I was looking after myself probably the best that I could at least.
If anything, I think my brother Luke went through more than all of us, because he was working in Western Australia and heard everything on the news about the bushfires and started getting messages that, oh, sorry for your loss and all these things. And it must be that much harder being away from the situation and not knowing what's going on. So Luke, for a good few hours, Luke had thought that he'd lost his family.
I thought to myself, if I stayed, I could save the house. And if I didn't stay, I couldn't. Whether it was unsavable or not, I had to have a go. If I didn't have a go, I would have always thought, who the hell am I? It was Luke and Dan's and Marin's and my whole life in that house. And even though it was a little house, it was everything. So I wasn't going to turn and run away, no way. I couldn't die because I know that little house of mine would save me through anything that could come over that hill. And once it had saved me, I'd go out and try save it. So I had my action plan, but never ever thought it would come to what happened, that's all.
Well, we don't know.
We're
looking maybe February we'd start doing something.
We have to do earthworks to build our block of land.
Yeah, we've got to do that first.
And we haven't got a lot of money because of the insurance policies we had were insufficient. So every cent counts. So we plan on buying an excavator and doing earthworks ourselves, and then selling the excavator, and with that money put into the house and build the house. But we won't get it finished, but we'll get close. We'll get as far as we can.
Yeah.
And then it'll just be a slow finish over the next so many years, and we'll
because we're doing it
finish
ourselves.
We do everything ourselves,
Yeah. Because we've got a family of tradesmen, so there's not a shortage of skill.
No, we've got the skills.
Got the skills,
just
not
the dollars.
money. So, yeah.
So I came back to Ursula waiting at the spa, and I sat down at the spa just looking up at the burning corner of the office, the studio, and was just immobilised by the hopelessness of it all. And I think at that stage I was ready to sort of just walk away. Ursula said, look, There's still water in the spa, and I looked over at the spa. The spa cover was severely burnt, but the actual spa fiberglass body was intact, so I flipped open the cover. Both ends of the spa cover were totally destroyed, but this brown fluid in there with all the leaves and garbage floating in there, that was going to be our saviour.
Been so busy rebuilding. We lost 2 garages, one being our workshop, and all the tools. Quite a lot of art was also gone, all the art supplies and easels, etc. We had a bungalow which we're sitting in the rebirth of that, I guess, which we've been busy building also. And that was really badly damaged, so we had to fix that up as well. We did come back after a week to the house, but it's just been very, very busy. We had to put new roof on, new wiring, new plumbing. All the pipes were down, new pumps, dig new trenches. All the pipes in the ground had burst, and so there's lots of work that needed to be done just to get it to a certain level. Half of the house didn't have electricity, so we were sort of camping in the house for a long time.
Because we'd done just about everything we required, I could spend a lot of time on the computer and with the cameras taking photos and manipulating those photos to create these images that you see. Having been struck by this fire, my wife Ursula made me do these last 7 or 8 in the middle there somewhere. I can't remember where, but I did them with her assistance, and that made it possible for us to have an exhibition at the Red Gallery just recently, with some sales, which I'm really rapt about. Haven't had any time to do anything since, but I'm looking forward to the future where we get rid of those 100 or so little jobs, but they can wait, and I can spend a bit of time with my computer and start creating things again.
Well, my art has helped me a lot, I think, in expressing my feelings. It always has been affected by my environment. I call myself an environmental expressionist, and fell in love with this area and our land and the trees, and of course after the fires, seeing what they've been through, again you sort of empathise with them, I guess. Not only the trees, but the animals as well that we saw that suffered so much. So, I mean, it did help me express those feelings of reconciliation, I suppose. Like a coming to terms with what has happened.
It's fairly laid back for us here at break of day, although our daughter now travels to school. She travels to a school that's an hour away, so that has impacted our life considerably, because now we do a commute which we've never done before. And so we've tried all various ways of trying to incorporate that into our lives, but the only way we can do it without impacting our business too much is if my partner Max does a morning run to school. He takes Isabel to school at 9 o'clock and then he comes back home, and then I leave at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to go and pick her up and get home at around 4:30. So that's been a huge impact on us, and because of that we felt that perhaps it was time for us to sell our property here at break of day and move closer to the school in a similar type of environment that we have here.
Up until the fire actually arrived here at about somewhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. That we were sort of apprehensive that maybe there would be a fire, but we didn't think it was going to come here. But when it did arrive, then after the initial panic of, oh no, get down to work and try and proceed to put it out as best you can to save our lives, basically.
And so we did purchase a block of land at Hoddles Creek, which is in the Yarra Valley, and we had planned to build a house there and a shed, and it took us 13 months to get building plans and permits for that block. And so we placed our property here on the market a week before Black Saturday hit. And I suppose that's... Sorry.
And after February the 7th, Black Saturday, we had lots of work to do to keep us busy to clean up, and it wasn't until 6 months later that when we had to go and tell our story over again to a social worker, that it seemed like it was just yesterday. And after talking with our caseworker and some other people, we realised that we hadn't gone through something we needed to go through to get over the trauma, like get some emotional stability back again. And we thought we were coping, but 6 months later we realised we weren't, and then we've gone and got some help from caseworkers and business advisors and lots of other people like that, which have been very helpful to getting us back to being normal again.
So as a result of Black Saturday, it's meant that we haven't been able to sell our property here at break of day. And although it's only a short-term problem, in a couple of years the trees will have grown back and things will be looking reasonably normal. The fire has impacted us in the way that we will be forced to sell our block that we've bought at Hoddles Creek, so we can no longer build our place that we wanted to. It also means that we've gone into debt because we borrowed on the equity of this property and the other property is not worth as much. And so it means that we will be carrying a debt because of the bushfires. And it still means that we'll be having to travel and doing that commuting. So it's impacted our lives greatly. It's meant we've lost our dream to move and sell. It's been 4 years hard work. It means we'll still have to do the unsustainable, unenvironmental travel to school, which is not really part of who we are, and it gives us no choice really but to stay. And even though it is a beautiful place and we've come to terms with having to stay, it's still been a big blow to us for our futures.
Initially we were turned down when we originally applied in start of March, I think, or towards the end of February, because they said we didn't meet any of their requirements to be eligible for any help or compensation. But obviously they were mistaken, because it turns out we are. Had we not had that assistance, we would probably have still been in the position we were. It's like being a bit turned into a zombie with part of your brain sort of turned off, and you have to sort of reawaken it again, which we may still be like that, and some people are. You can see them, they're walking around, they've got blank, glazed expressions, and you know what's happened to them. And they haven't gone through the thing they need to go through to get back on track, as it were.
I'm Chelsea and I live at Murramurra Co-op. This is Murramurra. I've been here for about 7 years and we're building our house at the moment, which is behind us. And we were up here last fire season and decided that we need a bunker. We've only got one access road in and out here. And there's 6 clusters and most clusters have a fire bunker or are getting one. And so we knew that we needed to do that. So we are utilising the crane at the same time to put our centre pole in for our house. We researched some bunkers online and then went to the Rebuilding Expo in Lilydale and got to go in and stand in the bunkers there and see how they are. And decided that this is what we wanted, and it's big enough to fit in extra people if we've got extras around, which we often do at Murramurra, and enough that the good thing about being at Murramurra is that we can share resources. So between 3 households we've bought this bunker and it will more than accommodate us in our time of need.
We're in a position where there's only one road in and one road out. So
And it's about 5 k's long, so...
Windy and narrow.
And all bush, so if there's a fire coming up there, there's just no way off the mountain. So it's a last resort, a last refuge.
I think of it as like a plan C, like if we've got plenty of warning and it's looking like being a bad fire, then, most of us will leave anyway. But if we don't get that warning and there isn't time, then at least we've got somewhere that's, bomb-proof and we can all fit. And, because the important thing is we save ourselves, I suppose,
and our children, because, people I would love to think I could be out there fighting the fire, but with 2 kids,
yeah,
I'm going to be in there.
Yeah.
Any reason not to look inside?
If we know there's a fire in the area, I think given the amount of forested road we'd have to drive through to get to even to Healesville, if there's a fire in the area, we'd have to stay here. And if it ended up coming here and was under conditions like we had last February, then we probably wouldn't even be trying to defend our houses.
No.
It's with that sort of wind and embers behind it. It's just, to me, it's like a backup. It's a last resort. I'd like to think that I could defend my house, but if push comes to shove, I don't want to find out at the last minute that I can't, and then have no other options. So I'd like to think that if we get a bushfire here, it'll be gentle enough and mild enough that we can just beat it off with a wet rag. But if it doesn't turn out that way, at least we're not going to have to lose everything, including our friends and neighbours and kids or anything.
I stayed in contact with my housemate who was a vet. He asked for my assistance to relocate a horse who was on the front of the fire and who had an injury. So I did that, and then I had to think about, well, the best thing I can offer with my skills was my ability to trailer load horses and horses that could be slightly more difficult when they're traumatised. I also had a trailer and I had a car that I could use, and my best friend who came over, who I was going hiking with, stayed with me while I did that, which was fantastic because she took the phone calls, she dealt with the people and I dealt with the animals when we were there to pick them up. So it was fantastic to be able to do that straight away. And we started doing that Sunday afternoon and she arrived Monday, and then we did it full on for a week and a half, like dawn to dusk, and then it slowly dropped off as things started to come back to normal. But over 2 months, I continued to move horses where I could and when I could. After the first 24 hours, we were pretty much phone call to phone call. We tried to take the animals as soon as we'd got the phone call, because you never know what else was going to come up. And we did animals from Yarra, Healesville through to Warburton and areas in between. And we found that animals responded hugely well to that. And I have to say, considering the situations those animals had been in and the injuries that some of them had incurred, they were extremely well adjusted to the situation and did very well when needed. I only had one horse that really, really struggled, and that was a fear-based thing that probably existed before the fire, from a lack of contact with people, and she required the 4 people to relocate her. She was hugely stressed. She was given drugs by the vet to sedate her, to try to let us to handle her and to relocate her. And she had so much adrenaline and fear in her body that she ran through most of those drugs. The vet was quite surprised at how she responded. And certainly for myself, I used to work Brumbies and things like that. I was quite surprised at her level of fear as well, and her fear that was overriding any pain that she had. She actually had 3 legs lame out of 4, and she still managed to gallop through that and push herself into rails and things like that. So we only had one horse that really didn't cope very well with the situation, and she came around very quickly and made a massive recovery, very, very well, and she's now part of my family, and we've kept her. Just a major thank you to everybody that helped out and that worked as a big team. It was a massive team of people that came together and that offered help to everybody that they came in contact with. It was a pretty special thing to be a part of. So there's a lot of positive sides as well that I think it's important to focus on, positiveness and being able to start again, and coming out with whatever you did come out with, and moving forward with that, and remaining part of the community and not being afraid to ask for that help if you need it. People are still willing to give it.
You got yourself in a real mess being out in the wild for 2 days, eh? Haven't you? Oh, don't you bite me. No. So they forget who their mother is after a while. And they said to me, Belinda, you should leave. We're leaving. And I said, I can't. I've got the animals, so I'm going to stay until I know all the animals have to go. And it really was a case of, I have so many animals, nobody is going to want to put me up now, 24 hours before the fire, unless they need to. And I walked out onto the balcony and the smoke billowed over my next door neighbour's house. But by then, I nearly had all the animals in the car. They were all there, ready to go, and then I just upped the speed with what I put them in the car. I saw the smoke coming over and just went, right, no more mucking around now. Just get them in and get out. And I made a phone call to my mother, who lives in another state, and told her the bushfire's coming. I'll call you as soon as I'm safe. And then I started to cry as I heard her voice, because I didn't know, and you don't, that was the feeling. You felt in control because you were moving through the motions, but you also didn't know what you were going to face. And you didn't know if you'd get out alive. So hearing your loved one's voice, that just made me cry. I told her I'd be okay and I'll ring her as soon as I could. About 2 minutes later, the lights and the power went out. So I was very happy that I got to speak to her. As I hopped in the truck and drove away, I thought, well, whatever happens, happens. I had 2 baby wombats, 3 little kangaroos, probably 4 or 5 possums, many baby birds. I had chickens, I had goats in the trailer behind the truck. I had pet birds, cockatiels, I had fish, I had snakes, I had lizards and ducklings. So there was a lot of different species in that one truck. You turned around, it just looked like Dr. Doolittle's truck. It was a bit crazy. I remember walking around the house. Everything was black. It looked like the moon. Everything that was standing and growing was dead. Both the things that we had built, the things that I had owned, were all burnt to the ground. But there was nothing green. The whole place was black and still smouldering. But there was the house, and it was bittersweet because I was so lucky to be alive, and you just remember going, nothing matters because I'm alive. Nothing matters that I've lost. But looking at the blackness just around the immediate bush here, being a wildlife carer, and I was already starting to lose all my own animals because they couldn't handle the heat, and knowing the enormity of the fires to have got to my place 10 days later still, all I could think was the amount of animals that were out there lying in pain or were dead. You know, just the sheer death that must have happened amongst animals. Echidnas, wombats, kangaroos, possums, everything would have been fleeing. On the back step was a dead sugar glider that his whole esophagus was burnt out. It was just black. I didn't even know there were sugar gliders here. And there must have been a little nest, a family right in the tree behind my house. So I remember feeling bittersweet, very, very happy to be alive and very happy to have had my personal belongings still here. Yet terribly sad for the destruction that it caused.
The area which the recovery garden is in was originally a problem as far as our fire guard group was concerned. It was very heavily timbered, probably in excess of 30 tonne per acre in ground fuel, and I had approached the CFA and a few others about a fuel reduction or controlled burn, and it was very difficult to get any interest from any of the authorities as far as a controlled burn of the situation. But however, following the fires, we approached the Murrindindi Shire to see if they would be agreeable to clearing the block, seeing that we'd had an uncontrolled burn. From that, I had a meeting on site with after contacting the engineering department, and they agreed to send out a representative. And he in turn surveyed the area and in part agreed that they would help clear the block. That was to level it of all of the fire rubble and do some primary grading of the block. And from that was part of the inception of it, with the agreement of all of the residents in the street that it was a good idea, basically.
This is the start of our community recovery garden. This is the remnants of the mulch that we've spent hours spreading, and every stake represents a plant, and there would be hundreds of plants in there, hard to believe, but hundreds of plants, and lots of man hours, and we're putting a lot of love into it, so hopefully it'll reward us and everyone else soon.
Well, this was our proposed pathway on the crest of this area, so that it traverses through the entire length of the block, with a step down area at either end, which is inside the main road where Mountain Home Road becomes a junction with it. For reasons of safety, it will be well back from the corners. And while it's pretty raw here at the moment, you can probably see the mulch on either side, suggesting that the pathway will go through here. And we possibly will have an area set aside at the top there. That will be one of the suggestions that we have in mind for an area of refuge or the seats, so that people can have a bit of a rest while walking through the area.
And I don't think there's any better way of healing than planting something and watching it grow. You have control over that, in the sense that you can put the plant in and look after it and put some mulch around it and, nurture it. And it's also teaching, out of something that's been very traumatic and very devastating, teaching you beauty and patience. Hey, all this happened, but look, if you wait long enough and nurture and give something, what it needs, you'll see beauty happen again.
And then I just thought, I don't think this is going to be a safe place for the horses. And so I said to Madeline and the girls, can you take the horses to my neighbours? They live just behind us here. And he's a farmer, and all his paddocks he'd had hay cut, so there was absolutely no bush, just grass. And they had a fairly long driveway, but my gut feeling was, and it was truly my gut feeling, is they'll be safe there. So I said to Madeline, you and the girls take the horses to Barry's. So they headed off with the 5 horses up the driveway. Mind you, we could hear the fire approaching by the time when they left, and Madeline had come out to me and said, Mum, there's birds falling out of the sky. So then the 3 girls and I, so during the fire, the 3 girls had actually ended up in the house, in my neighbour's house, and they stayed in there till the fire passed, and they'd let all the horses go, done all the right things, but 3 of them had panicked, I think, and headed back, I'm guessing, back down the drive in the path of the fire. And they ended up in a paddock that had a lot of bush. So yeah, we waited the night out, and at about, I don't know what time it was, I think it was about 8 o'clock. The bulldozers had managed to get in, and I think they probably came to our property first, or this property first, because there were so many people staying at the house, and they'd cleared the road. So the 3 girls and myself, we just put the 2 burnt horses on the float. They just hopped straight on and headed straight for the vets. And I'll never forget driving down this driveway, and everything was black. There was no colour left except for our house. It was like, this green roof and this house, this brown house, just sitting in this oasis of blackness, of nothing. And our road was completely unrecognisable. I couldn't even recognise my way out of Strathfield, and nothing was recognisable. It was just, everything was black or silver from how hot it had got. Animals are very important in my life. They're important to a lot of other people, and I know that people died trying to save their animals. And I think that the wider community needs to understand that for some people, their animals are their family, and don't be critical if someone chose to stay to save an animal, because that's their family. And I think that one of the things that really used to upset me in the early days was that when people would say to me, how'd you go, and you'd say, my daughter's, because I was always worried about my daughter. My daughter, she lost her horse, and that was very traumatic. And they'd say, oh, well, at least you've got a house. I used to hate hearing people say at least, because that was so profound. It was so profound for us, and it was devastating. Yeah. If you said to me, what do I need at the moment? I reckon I just need a bit of support as a person who still has a house, living in a community of people who don't have a house. Yeah. Because that has been difficult, and I'm not going to use the word survivor guilt, because I think that's a crap word. Because I don't see myself, well, I'm a survivor, but I don't feel guilty because my neighbours lost their houses. I just feel profoundly sad about it. Look, my relationship breakup was very significant. That was huge. And then to be able to patch things up and start again has been, still hasn't been easy. But I feel now like I've turned a bit of a corner in every aspect of my life, because now I feel happy now. Probably the happiest I've ever been at Strathewen. I mean, in amongst all the sadness, don't get me wrong, I still get really sad, but happier. I'm happy here, and I feel like that I'm determined to rebuild what we lost and to have a good life here. Yeah, that's the most significant thing for me, I think.
At the time of the fires in February 2009, we were living here in Yarra Junction. We moved from King Lake about 9 years ago, and so I've been in the valley since. And at the time of the actual day of the fires, yes, we were home here, and actually got a call from Gay, our tenant, who a close friend of ours who is living at our house, and she said something like, "You know about the fires, and things are not looking good at all." And so I really wasn't sure what she meant by that, but that was the brief message. And of course later on found out that the house, the property, had been completely burnt down. And so it was only a week or so later when people could go up to the area that was affected by the fires, and both Gay and I went up there to have a look what had actually happened, and yeah, it was quite amazing, quite a horrific sight.
Well, the vision was, we thought it'd be big enough for 2 families to live on. So for Gay to live there and for us to go back to live there, if that was our choice. Because the education, I was focused on, of course, in our education, get them through. We've got 1 more year to get them through, and then we decide again, another time to decide, do we want to stay in the valley? It's beautiful here, or do we want to go back home? And then we'd be sharing the property with Gay, so it'd be two families living there. That was the idea, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, and so I didn't know what was really happening. It was just through another friend who was caught up here too, but on the west side, which was probably the safer side to be on. She was coming through with little bits and pieces that she was hearing, or from what was happening around this area here, because her son was living just down the road, and she had heard that our place, or Anna and Vasily and my own place here, was on fire and gone. So it was all, quite shocking to be hearing. So I'm back up here living on my son's block in the shed, enjoying going down doing my course. And as far as my next part of my future, I'm not quite knowing what it's going to be yet, but I am just leaving the door open at the moment. Unfortunately, I did come to the conclusion with Anna and Vasily that I'm sorry, but it wasn't going to be on this block again. As much as part of me wanted to go into rebuilding again, the other part of me says, no, I don't think I can. So I've just followed that in myself, even though I don't quite know what the next part is going to be.
And so we've just let things go a bit. Shaheen last year was doing her year 12, so we've really focused on that as a last year. And now that we're thinking, all right, we've got some time, what should we do with King Lake? Should we rebuild or not? But when I go up there and have a look around, I get this sense that it's something that I've done, built as an owner builder. We've built and put everything into it, and I don't think at this stage of my life that I'd be able to do that again.
I suppose the disappointing thing with those meetings, for my personal assessment, was that they are very regular, the meetings. The CFA endeavoured to put them at locations within easy access of the community. So we have them on street corners in the more remote parts of Nillumbik, to town halls and public halls within the townships themselves. But even still, you go to these meetings and you're speaking to, at some of them, you're only speaking to a handful of people. And Nillumbik has a population of 58,000. I think in that 2008-2009 period, I went to meetings and probably spoke to, if there was more than 250 people, I would have been amazed across all the meetings. So the level of awareness of the community, I suppose, had a question mark over it as to what their perceptions of the fire danger was. And the level of planning that they actually had done them for themselves was probably at a very low rate across the community. But once again, these are volunteer meetings. You can't force people to come to these things. So that, in line with the public education program through TV and media that the CFA run, that was the best that was available at the time. And it's even continued even now. In the 2009-2010 fire season post Black Saturday, whilst there was an increased attendance at those meetings, even still, it rose from 250 to approximately 2,000 across all meetings. But that's 2,000 out of 58,000. Still a very low attendance given what had occurred only 12 months prior.
There's probably about eight lines coming into the ICC, 8 phone lines coming in, plus everyone's got their mobile phones, and there's 2 or 3 radios going as well. So at times there were probably 8 or 10 phone conversations going, 2 or 3 radios going. It might look like bedlam. I don't think it is, but there's certainly a heck of a lot coming, and you've got to try and work out which is the relevant information, which is, there's stuff that comes in that later on you find out wasn't right. There's conflicting information. People are telling you something's happened, and you think, well, do they know that's happened, or do they think that's happened? And you've got to try and make sense of all that sort of stuff. Once you convey that information to our crews in the field, the crew leaders, the sector commanders, the division commanders, it's really up to them to make decisions based on what's happening before them as to what they can and can't do. You're sitting in an office 30 kilometres away, relying on phone calls, radios. You get a picture of what's going on, but you can't be specific, because that it just wouldn't work. It'd be silly and it'd be dangerous and wouldn't work. So you rely on having good, experienced people in the field to say, well, this we can do, this is worth it, this, no, we can't do that. And I can't remember when it was, but we got a phone call from someone from the public, saying there were people trapped in the mill at Narberthong, I think it was. They're all going to die. You've got to get someone down there to help them. Well, we tried to. We spoke to our sector commanders at Marysville. Can you get to Narberthong? No, we can't. It's too dangerous. There was fire all around at that stage. So there's not much you can do. If they can't get there, there's no point killing firefighters to get down there to see if the message was correct or not, let alone if you can do anything about it. So you do what you can, and what's humanly possible. And if it's not humanly possible, or you can't do something, as much as you can, you let that go and work out and focus on what you can do. Yeah. So, and that was pretty hard for some of the people that have to deal with that. It was tough, no question. And virtually everyone's got a mobile phone these days, and whilst that didn't work the whole time, I think the tower got burnt or whatever. But people are ringing their families, and then they're and I still had the duty officer phone, so the initial point of contact for the families of lots of our crew was, they were ringing up saying, we've heard they're in trouble in areas. What can you tell me? And don't know the details, but we understand that all our guys are on the Oval and they're safe. So hopefully that was reassuring. Yeah.
I don't really know what my feelings were. It was a very strange feeling driving from here to the Oval, which is, under normal circumstances, would take 3 or 4 minutes. But everything had gone and it was just surreal. There was no sense of, we couldn't work out where we were because there were no landmarks anymore. And even when we got to the Oval, there were still things to be done. So just continued with the radio and monitoring everybody, making sure people were all right. And my colleagues were all off round the town, trying to do what they could with what remained, making sure that anybody who were in houses, making sure there was people who could possibly be trapped, they could get them out and bring them back. They did an amazing job, and they all knew that they had lost their own houses. Because my house survived and I came back to live in Marysville as soon as the town was opened up, I have to say I found it extremely difficult dealing with the numbers of people who were coming into town just to look. My house was the first house that people saw, so they stopped and photographed because I had no fences. I was open to the world. I had no privacy at all, and it got to the stage where when I was at home I didn't even want to go outside the door. And I know so many of those people were coming into town to support us, and so it was a very difficult situation, really. We were all very appreciative of the unbelievable support that we got. But there were also a lot of people who were just coming to look at the devastation, and they were the ones who were busy taking photographs and not having any thought for those of us trying to get on with our lives. So, yes, I was resentful of those people, but at the same time enormously grateful to the people who were coming in to genuinely offer us support.
SES had two road rescue vehicles and a catering van. So the road rescue vehicles, one of them had, I think we carried 5 chainsaws. The other one carried 1, but it would be inappropriate to put SES people into some of the areas where trees need to be cut anyhow. So, I mean, we're anticipating that we might be called on in both services, but it just means that, okay, are we going to have a crew out there as quicker than we might normally have them? So we have people ready, but once they got hit with that, it was overwhelming. Stayed on the other side of that ridge, went right through, past all of that, but then kept coming across and then took them out. But it was a good half hour, I reckon, between us getting hit here and the people up the other end of the road getting hit. I had no real concept of loss. It was just, okay, we're going to have to start again. And I think that's one of the issues that made it difficult in subsequent months was that at times I was keen. I was drawing up the new house and asking Lindy what she wanted, etc., etc. But there were occasions where she said, look, I just don't want to know about it at the moment. And fair and reasonable. But I think it gave me a different focus, a new something to strive for. I don't remember at the time any bereavement for what I've lost. And it was over a period of time that you think, oh, well, yeah, Lindy lost her wedding ring, my daughter lost a Deb dress, and they had things that they were attached to. Now, I reckon that we particularly have coped fairly well. But there's always this issue of what might happen down the track. And I know that Lindy one night was going out and actually had a flashing sign saying road closed, local traffic only, or something along those lines. And she drove past it and the thing's flashing orange lettering, and she saw it in a rear view mirror and had an instant, what's going on? So there could be triggers that we don't know about at the moment, and they could generate something quite some distance down the track. And I'm aware that it can happen. And so for us, I think if it did happen, it wouldn't come as a shock. But it may come to people who are not aware. And I don't know how aware other people are around the place.
Yeah, prior to the anniversary, I had an idea to help the crew through leading up to the anniversary, that we might like to go down to the area that we were and where we helped, retrace our steps. So I put it forward to the crew and spoke to the captain, and he was all for it, and the crew were all for it. And it was we just felt that it was something that would help us on the day of the anniversary mentally. So what we did was we were dressed in our blues uniform. We sat in the exact positions that we did in the truck, and we proceeded to go down to St Andrews and into the area that we were, I would say caught, but when the fire went over us. And it was, I would say the trip down was, the early part of the trip down was talking. And then as we approached the area, it was very silent. And when we got to our first part of the destination, we parked the car. We all got out and we had a little wander on our own. And then we bandied together again. And then we had a chat. And then from that point we got back in the car and proceeded to chat, and we just sort of, by that stage the ice was broken, if you could call it like that, and then we're talking about various parts of that was this and remember that part, and things were coming back to us, and then we went back up to the house and went, into the paddock. Well, I didn't exactly go into the paddock, but went out to the house, and the people were there this time round, and we met them and had a chat with them, and they were great, and we told them our experience of, that they weren't there and what we did in the paddock and the horses, etc. And from there we went back to the St Andrews station, and they were having their own anniversary thing there, lots of people. And then from that point, we caught up with the people at the winery, and they actually knew that we were coming down, which was interesting, and they wanted us to come back to the house. So we actually took ourselves back to some of the other areas in the steps that we took, and then we went across to the winery and met up with them, and probably were there for approximately an hour and had a chat and looked at the parts of the house that were okay, and the bit that we were saving, etc. And it was very good. And then we went back up to King Lake, and it was a moment that we all needed, I think, and it was good.
A lot of people in this area, especially people that live alone, you become, as a radio presenter, you become their friend, because, you're in their house with them, and they get to know your voice. They mightn't have a lot of contact with other people, but they get to know your voice, and they identify you as a friend and as a source of information. So, a lot of the people that phoned us up saying what should they do, I bet you a lot of those people were people who were living by themselves, who'd sort of listened to the radio and identified with it. They were asking mainly what's happening, where are there fires, and what should I do? That was the biggest question. What should I do? So people were asking us for advice on whether they should be evacuating or not. And we were saying, okay, you should phone the Victorian Bushfire Information Line, and the response was, I've tried that, I can't get through to them. What should I do? And so there were a lot of people who were really, really scared in the community. They knew that something was happening because of, the smoke that was coming across, the embers that were falling down. But really thirsty for information. Also, we noticed that our internet streaming service, where we broadcast what we broadcast on air goes over the internet, that was running at capacity. So for the first time, we actually ran out of. There were so many people sort of tuned in over the internet trying to find information that we were at the limits of the amount of data that we could pump out. During the emergency, one woman came into the station and she said that she was in Marysville and just had left Marysville just before the fires hit, and had taken her, and she was with a group of other people, taken her a couple of days to actually work their way down to where we are. And she just came into the station to say thank you, because, her phones weren't working, and the only radio station that they could pick up was Yarra Valley FM. So she just wanted to say thanks for, providing the service. Otherwise, they wouldn't have known what to do. Normally, with a radio station, it's kind of one way. You're sitting alone in a room broadcasting to goodness knows how many people. It might be 5 people, it might be 500, I don't know. Occasionally you'll get a phone call. So yes, there is somebody out there listening. But during this whole period, it really showed just how important radio stations are in the community, and just what importance and what use the community has for radio stations.
I think the ABC has been astonishing. I think the management team there is incredibly strong. They were much more, I mean, the people who were there all the time were incredibly affected. They were working round the clock, you know, some of them didn't have a day off in 3 or 4 weeks. They were just there every day. Debriefing and counselling was offered to everybody, and many people took up that option. The things that they were hearing was what most people should never have to hear. As far as being trained, part of being a broadcaster is instinctive, and I think we all had to learn to come from a space of calm and knowing that our words were really powerful and that people were hanging on those words. For me, it was about giving the listeners the opportunity to talk, and the broadcasters did an amazing job, and they were told, let people say what they want to say, let them vent, let them cry, let them do what they want to do. So we all lived through that, listening to those people.
I think we responded really well in extremely difficult circumstances. I'm so proud of the job that we did. I think that we did the best that we could with the information that we had and more, in the thick of what was happening on the Saturday, trying to bring people the most accurate information from both the authorities and from our listeners and from text messages, and really trying to look at those things with not a critical eye, but trying to bring some understanding for people about what was happening. We were certainly a comfort for people and a companion then and then in the following weeks, and that was clear from, the information that we had brought to us, the types of phone calls that we were getting, was obvious that people turned to the ABC as a source of information and as a comfort. So I'm confident that we provided that. It became clear from the types of phone calls that we were getting that, it was a very serious situation, because we were getting the sorts of phone calls from people who couldn't get through to 000. 000 was obviously overloaded, and so they were calling us. And, so some of them ranged from there's a fire at the end of my street to people who took calls from people who were trapped in cars or trapped in their houses. And that was, they're not the sort of calls that a talkback producer is trained to take. So that was really difficult. We had people ringing up asking about family members that were in certain areas and saying, will they be okay? And it became very difficult because, aside from taking all those phone calls, we were trying to keep a program going and trying to continue to provide, emergency information. And as a producer, you're very much, supporting a presenter. You all the time, you need to be telling them what's coming up next, which phone line are they on, what, directing the program. But so much of our time and energy sort of was ended up being directed towards those sorts of phone calls. I think because we'd sort of worked through it thinking, I wish we could have done more, I wish we could have saved more people. I just wish we could have done more to save those people. I remember coming home this second, third night and just having that reaction. We couldn't have done any more than we did. And without being out there in Kinglake or in Marysville to describe what was happening, we had people calling in doing that. We were in the studio, we couldn't have brought any more information than we did, I don't think. Yeah. But it's, broadcasting that sort of information, as I said earlier, brings with it a certain sense of responsibility. So, that people are relying on it. It's life and death information,
Strong family, strong team around me, and just a feeling in the community, people wanting their Premier of the day to provide leadership and, I suppose, an emotional link with the communities. And the first media interview that I did on the Sunday morning after the fires, where I broke down at the start of the interview, so many people told me that they watched, that night on TV, and they broke down in front of the TV as well. That's how, and people wanted to be able to express that emotion and feeling, and many of them did it in their own living room. And there were many times, many media interviews in particular, over the next few weeks where it was very hard not to break down again. And it took a lot of effort, an immense amount of effort and sort of self-discipline to keep focused. But again, I think while the public would want their Premier to share with them their feelings of loss and despair and devastation, at the same time, people don't want their Premier or their General in Command to be breaking down every day and every night. And so it was hard, and frequently, I'd meet families that have lost loved ones, and I'd comfort them, and then 5 minutes later, I'm doing a media interview, and it was a bit like, trying to, I suppose, speak at a funeral service, trying to deliver a eulogy. And for anyone who's done that, they can be very, very difficult. But again, I think I got through that, and it was the support of family and friends, a supportive cabinet and media, and a community, I think, that was saying to me, we want you to be able to lead, to make the decisions that the state needs to get through this. The psychologists who provided some advice to our cabinet on these things said that it was important to give the people of Victoria and Australia an opportunity to grieve, and it was better to do that earlier rather than later. I think it wasn't a hard decision to say there should be a service. The hard decision was to say where should it be and what should the date be. And the date was the particularly difficult part because it was February 22nd, I think it was just a couple of weeks later. So there were still families who were intensely grieving. There were still many families who didn't actually know for sure if they'd lost a loved one, that the coroner hadn't made that determination yet at that stage. But I think the date was right. I think it would have been wrong to delay it. As for the service itself, I think we got the balance right in the service. I think between, serious speeches, commentary, poetry versus people's ability to sing together, to pray together, to weep together. And people did that. For believers, there was enough religion, I think, but for those who weren't believers, there was enough there as well. So I think it was a really important service in terms of bringing the state and the nation together and letting people share in that grief, and they did. And as I said, for me, for Rosemary, for our family, for so many people. I think the PM, people openly sort of wept at stages and that, and I think that was a good thing to share that grief.
It's about 12 months on since the last time we did this trip, and a couple of significant changes. A lot more fencing has been completed, which is a big thing for everybody, having their boundary fences completed at least, and a couple of new houses, and this house has been rebuilt. It's almost identical to the one that was there, which is terrific. We're really happy for them. They're going to be moving in soon. And new property owners, new neighbours, which is up there burning off some rubbish now, which is a young bloke's bought that, which is terrific.
How many people?
Well, there's probably there's probably only two or three properties now that people are still undecided what they're going to do. But yeah, mostly I think people, worked out what they're going to do. This guy's still living in his shed, and he probably he'll build a little bit down the track, which would be great. But you can really notice that a lot more growth on the trees, and some of the growth is real growth as opposed to epidemic growth, and as the epidemic growth will drop away and the real growth sort of takes over, the only real reminder will be the black tree trunks, to be honest. Other than that, you hardly know the difference. Last time you visited us, you didn't have a haul, whereas we've got a bit of a haul happening now, which you can see is looking absolutely sensational. Here we are, we're 12 months down the track, and we've had a lot of support. The state government have been great with their funding, and the local council have gone into quite a lot of public consultation, and we've got ourselves a facility which is nearly ready to be opened. You've got the main hall there on the left, the meeting rooms for the CWA and the playgroup. Also the fire station, and we also picked up a new slip-on recently, which was great. A little cricket pavilion at the front there. So once we mow the grass and get it all up and running again, we'll have a great little facility here. Well, here we are at the Coligny Hall, which is officially now called the Coligny Hall. The name's been given to it. We're inside the main hall right now, which has been very, we've had a lot of use since it's opened up on Australia Day. We had a terrific day on Australia Day. Probably about 500 people turned up, which was sensational for our community and for the opening of the hall. It's been used nearly every day, to be honest. Different groups. There's a memorial project that's working. They come up and use it. The Stitch and Chat ladies, who will be here shortly, doing some work on hangings and that sort of thing. The playgroup have been using it twice a week now. They've got such big numbers that they've had to have an extra day, which is great. We've got the CWA that have been using it. The Hall Committee have been using it. We've had several functions. We've had a few corporate functions already, and just today we got our first booking for a wedding coming up in about 6 weeks' time. And And the young lady was crying when she was walking around the building. She was so delighted with the venue, so that gives us a big kick. And looking forward to them having their special day here, and it's a perfect place for it. So
Peter's made a hill into a block of land and sweeping banks and gardens and a big flat area for a lawn. And yeah, so it's going to be a huge wandering garden.
We've had building consultants come in and they're helping us get all the plans all done and all the permits and all that sort of stuff. So that's taken a bit of getting quotes and all that sort of stuff. So that took off a bit of time. So yeah, so we're still at that stage. We've got the preliminary plans drawn, so he forgot to put in a few things. But yeah, so we'll get them all done soon. So that's been good. But there's been comments about people wish they had done what we've done as far as getting equipment.
Yeah.
Because they, as you said, they were rushed into doing things.
Yeah, that's what we've heard so many times through so many people.
Regretting what
I wish
they've
we
done.
hadn't rushed into it, and everyone rushed. We built a shed and hid.
Yeah.
And just because it took a bit of nursing ourselves to get over what we've happened and come out with a clear mind. And,
you don't make good decisions when you...
Yeah, don't make decisions when you're
stressed out to the max.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, you didn't even notice how stressed out you were.
No.
Like, you were just too busy to be, everything's burnt, everything's gone, but we're still here, you know.
Well, you didn't have time.
You didn't have time to actually take it all in, and I think
we've given ourselves.
I think there's a not a difference, but with
distance,
people, but with people who haven't lost their house but lost everything around them, are in a position where they've still got their house, and they've got we've got to build a garden, we've got to put a shed up, but there's so much time to think about the person down the road and what everyone else is going through. I think from one perspective, if you didn't lose your house, I think sometimes mentally it'd be a bit harder because you've got so much time to think about
everything,
you know, and you overthink about things. Where we've just been flat out doing what we've got to do. So you don't have time to, you know.
It's good you see that, Dan. That's good.
Well, I think before the fires, I was, just working flat out and trying to get back into racing, motocross, and because I was brought up in that sport, do what everyone else is doing, and you know, not be the clown, but you know, make sure everyone else is happy, and didn't really do a lot for my own self, and I think after the fires, it definitely put me back in a stance to say, well, you know, life is so fragile that it could be taken away at any moment. So I think from that perspective, I thought, well, this is my life, and I've got to start doing things for me and achieving goals that I've always wanted to and not always talked about, but never had the confidence or always had the drive, but not the focus and the confidence to go out and do it. And after the fires, it's just sort of been just a flat out, just try and squeeze as much into my life as I can and experience as much as I can. And you know, I've just got the most beautiful girlfriend now, Paige, and she just lived up the road. She lived in Coligny as long as I have, you know, and we never met. You know, we're only 2 kilometres away. We never met. And
the fact that we have completed absolutely everything now, you know, and there were only a few little outstanding works to do, and those have now been completed, well, except a couple. And we felt comfortable in ourselves that we had finished the project of rebuilding, and
we sort of had helped
heal the house in a way. You know, that we brought the house back to feeling whole again, and I don't know. I feel that
Yes.
we and improved upon it, and I don't know. It was a way of paying respects back to the house, in a sense. You know, to have finished it and to completed it, and not walked away from it when it was looking pretty shabby. So I think so in that way. I don't feel a guilt in that way of leaving the house, because I feel that we've sort of brought it back to a better place in itself. You know, that we've sort of healed it in that sense. It doesn't kind of make sense, but in a way, I just feel that we've paid the house back for saving us.
Purely by accident, totally unplanned, we've discovered and bought a block of land, a 1 acre bush block in Wonthaggi. And the plan is to build a new house and shed, studio, gallery there, and sell this property. So that's the plan. And we're sort of, the wheels are turning and they're getting faster all the time.
We really did feel a little bit odd about when we drove back from there, drove into the driveway, and you look at the lovely house and all the work that we've put into it and all that we've been through together. And it did feel a little bit sad, didn't it? So, but on the other hand, it felt the right thing to do too. So I just hope it will be.
We've become a lot closer. We can do anything. We can do anything now. Not a problem.
Yeah. I suppose, yes, I agree. I think it's made us braver in facing challenges, I think, because, I don't know, spiritually, the fire may be a little bit more in tune with that side of myself, wondering how we survived that night and questioning some of those forces, unseen forces, still not having all the answers to it, but feeling that there's a reason for things, not that we understand them, and accepting it, I suppose, accepting the challenge and going with it, you know, going with it and making the most of it. So I guess that's what I got out of it, I think.
The sound of the water pump running its legs off, on and on and on. I walk outside to see if a fire exploded in the paddock below. I yell at my husband. He looks and says, "Yep, it's fire, alright." I run inside. I am paralysed by fear. The water pump keeps going on and on and on. We will run out of water or we'll run out of power. Will we lose the lot or ourselves?
As I say, we managed to sell our block on Huddles Creek, and we've acquired $100,000 worth of debt, but it's manageable now. Well, almost manageable. And we may get some money from a class action that's going on through Morrison Blackburn for the Kilmore East. Fire was started by power lines. They're suing SP Ausnet, the government, CFA, police force. People who weren't doing their jobs properly.
It's been 2.5 years since Black Saturday, and I guess personally I see it as being a real challenge. It was far more challenging than what I anticipated in a number of ways. I think it's been extremely challenging financially for us, just because we were selling our property at the time Black Saturday hit us, and challenging in the sense that my partner has had post-traumatic stress since Black Saturday, and that's affected us as a family. And I guess in quite a number of ways, it's been very challenging. Keeping the family together, trying to keep things regular, but getting hit up against a brick wall in response to that. It's been challenging. So I guess my main response would be that it has been a very challenging time in my life.
Well, challenging part of the journey for me in that 2.5 years is getting over sort of a traumatic stress syndrome. As I've said before, you probably don't realise you've acquired it. You sort of feel normal, but until you speak to someone who knows about that sort of stuff, you don't realise until they sort of create your awareness of what's going on in your head. I had rapid eye movement technology by a counsellor. Rapid eye technology is similar to dreaming. They have someone with a wand that goes like that, so your eyes go sideways, and then they ask you questions. I'm not sure whether it's a bit like hypnosis, but it seemed to work. Just 3 treatments, or 3 sessions, or 4 really, but the first one was just an initial orientation to what she was going to do. And it worked wonders.
Personally, I think I've changed. I think I've become wiser. I think I've become more giving too. I think when there were floods in central Victoria this January, I offered to go and help because I know what that's like to suddenly go through a natural disaster. They didn't need any help. They didn't want people to come in. They had enough community there to help them at the time, so I didn't go and help. But I think I've become more giving. I think I've become less materialistic. I think that there's a greater love of life, perhaps. Perhaps also a more of a reason to live life to the fullest, because this is our one and only chance, and in life is so precious. I think I've become a better person.
Some of the rather minimal advancements, but they're significant for us because it all takes time. But these stools were virtually provided by the Kinglake Men's Shed, of which I sort of have a membership with, and physically actually made these seats at the shed, and along with the help of Mark and Chris Rural, we actually installed these, and that was one step forward, and there's another one further down the track. Other things are the entry steps from the northern end here. They are all virtually complete, but we're thinking that they may need a handrail, so that's sort of still a little incomplete. Other things that are in the process of are the acknowledgement signage, which is to go on a couple of nicely coloured stones that we have down there, and it reads Mountain Home Recovery Garden, created by the residents of Mountain Home Road to restore and enhance the area post the Black Saturday fires, 27th of the 2nd, 2009. And then a subtitle on it again, which reads, A Garden to Reflect and Enjoy. And then underneath that we have some acknowledgements, which is Commonwealth and Victorian state governments, Keep Australia Beautiful, Vic Roads, Murrindindi Shire and Christian School Monbulk, which the children were involved in providing their services to do a lot of the planning. So we hope that that will be engraved.
Been noticing over the years since we've been up here, like eagles flying around, and even like recently we've seen some eagles on the side of the road, and I suppose it's just been it's an amazing sort of bird, and it reminded us of a passage in the Bible that we both enjoy, which talks about rising above life's difficulties like an eagle, and of course everyone knows how high an eagle can go and up in the sky. And so we just thought that it would be something. I just like eagles, and I found one in a like one of these garden places, and I went. So I thought I'll get it, and it'd be great to have it on somewhere and have a little plaque, just to kind of get people to remember that it was a difficult time, but we've got through it, and yeah, a bit of inspiration that way. The actual thing I'm going to put on the plaque is not exactly what's in the Bible. It's kind of like I've made it into a bit of a poem based on those verses, and I just call it Hope. And it basically says, hope will give us strength to keep on going, to rise above the fray on eagle's wings. Hope will give us courage to keep on walking, to persevere no matter what life brings. Hope is from the Lord. And it comes out of Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31. So that was basically what was behind me wanting to have something that symbolised a hope, and since we have a lot of eagles around this way, it was kind of something I thought we could I could utilise that. It's all ready to go. It's just a case of I've got to work out what ladders I'm going to use to get up that high. Because I'm going to have something on this side of the pole and another one on this side, so that I don't kind of. So, I'm thinking I might even be able to get one of those A-frame ladders on a ute or something like that. That might be able to get me high enough.
Emotionally, I just like the fact that even if I don't walk up here, just looking out and saying, hey, we did it. We did it. We did it.
Yeah, it's just starting to dawn on me what a huge project it was, and we actually did it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have happened with one person. It needed the group to make it work, and the input of heaps of people, and it just kind of, it was an idea that eventuated, and sometimes you wonder, gosh, how did that happen? And then it did.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for all your assistance so far, but this is the first day in our property with Pierre and Anna, Shaheen and Laris, and relatives, family and friends. Well, we've sort of come to the realisation that we do have to sell Kinglake to make this possible. But by the same token, I've been up a couple of times just to clearing the block and that. And it just sort of triggered in my mind, oh geez, what would it be like to settle back here? And because particularly for the girls, there was, a connection when they were growing up and they started kinder there and went to school for a little while. So just the sort of the remote possibility that, we could come back, and then I say, no, it's not real, so I just sort of let it go. So I've just had to, say that was a part of our life, that's a chapter in our book kind of thing, and just let it go completely.
It's a long journey. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. Well, the past will never go, that's one thing. And it's just picking up moments of the past that I have to deal with as they come up. And so that always happens with different things. Even coming here, there's a lot of sadness happens because I look out the window and I feel like I'm in King Lake, just looking out the window, and I might know I'm not there, I'm actually here. There's that feeling. And so it's like I have got what I had there a little, which makes it easier to deal with. But the whole journey, I just I'm understanding loss and the grieving process, and how I deal with the past. And I don't deal with the past very well, I'm deciding. So it's good to understand myself and the past. And I have been seeing counselling more for the past 6 months than I'd ever did right at the beginning, 2 years ago. And it's interesting what comes up and how I'm still dealing with a lot of issues. And understanding everyone does have their own pace in recovering or dealing with things.
Oh, look, I feel I'm really glad that I have made the decision to stay, because it has been home for over 30 years, and I am feeling a lot more positive, as in the environment coming back, particularly the national park. It's looking beautiful and lush, and nature knows. I understand that nature knows how to regenerate, and it's doing the way it should. And I'm enjoying watching everybody go through the process, and they, even though at the moment each house is looking like it needs a lot of garden established. There's only just bare houses at the moment, without people haven't got to the extent of now creating a garden to finish off the whole picture. But that's all coming, and I can just see people just being excited that they have got something new to work in and around now, a new structure. So it feels very positive. Yep, very positive now. So.
For me, it's terrific. I mean, I've come right through the whole fire, from the preparation before. I mean, we didn't know there was going to be a fire, but the preparation in the lead up to Black Saturday, right through on the day, out in the field, and sector commander on for a few days, and in the whole fire effort for the weeks after Black Saturday. Then the rehabilitation program, rehabilitating the fire control lines, reopening the parks and the forest up, opening the tracks up, and now to be rebuilding facilities and to see the bush recover. It's for me, it's terrific. It's really good to go through the whole process, right from the beginning, well, through to the end, and to see everything and doing probably about as good a job as we could do. I mean, there's always little things you think, next time we might be able to do this better or that better. But overall, I think the whole effort from a whole range of people, from range of organisations, individuals, it's been terrific to see the whole lot. And coming out here and just being amongst the regenerating bush is fantastic. The bush is regenerating remarkably well. I think a lot of people were thinking that it wasn't, it was such an intense fire and on the back of 10 or 15 years of drought that the bush wouldn't recover. But I think nature's just showing how resilient she is, and the regrowth in many areas is just stunning. I mean, the eucalypts are coming back, the wattles, all the understory plants, the wildflowers this year have been wonderful as well. But it's not only the plants too. The bird life is really prolific. Huge numbers of insects this year, and the whole lot is just feeding all into the ecosystem, and everything's recovering really, really well. We've had a number of programs also that aiming to assist that recovery. We've had some reasonably intensive weed control programs, so we're trying to knock the weeds that are going to come back after the fire as well. That's been good. and we've also had a fairly intensive predator control program targeting mainly foxes that were going to be eating the small mammals that are vulnerable to fox predation. So we've done a lot of work on that as well to reduce the numbers of foxes, and that's been very successful. As well as that, we've done some monitoring of what's around in the bush with camera traps and also hair tubes and other small mammal trapping. And in this park, they've found some white-footed dunnarts, and we've also in Yarra Ranges National Park, particularly around Lake Mountain, we've done some work monitoring and supplementary feeding for the leadbeater's possum, which was severely impacted by the fires. I think before the fires there were quite a large number of leadbeater's possums on Lake Mountain. Since the fire, I think they've found about 4 or 6. So the population was almost totally wiped out. So there's been supplementary feeding for the possums up there just to help them through the hard times until the natural food comes back, just to try and keep that population alive. So that's been a really rewarding part of the fire recovery program for us.
I could probably just say that there was an interesting moment on the eve of the 7th of February this year. I was here alone at home, and I was out in the back, and I was having a quiet beer to myself. Started thinking about things, and ended up in just welling up a bit in tears a little bit there, and as that's occurring, my girlfriend called me, and she caught me, at that moment. And she's a freelance writer, and she's very good at poem writing, and she wrote me a poem and called it Tears in My Beer, and it was very, very good. 2 years ago to this very day, my life was changed in so many ways. When straight from hell the firestorm came and took everything that got in its way. The familiar old home is now shiny and new. The bush and the view has changed too, and there are so many faces once smiling and cherished, who are no longer with us because in the black they perished. Then the ash and charcoal were bulldozed away, and up went the yellow ribbons to commemorate this day. There's still reminders all around, tall trees blackened, white crosses in the ground, and there are times still, if I wallow too deep, that I can start to smell the smoke and the feeling, the burning of the heat. And although 2 years and the danger is past, I will still start to sweat and feel the panting of my heart. I don't live in the past or like to dwell on the drama, but what happens before makes us who we are after. Hardened by fire, I am stronger and vow that it can't ever beat me because it's part of me now. That fire killed my friends, consumed my home, my town, and I'm worried for a while that in my tears I'd drown. Now those feelings about my burning mountain, people dying in my home of ash, I store away for 1 day a year, my emotion stash. Then I can talk, dwell and cry, think, share meals, moments, memories and a drink. They say get over it, harden up, move on. They say I must survive it, beat it and be strong. And that's exactly what I'm doing 364 days of the year, because I'll always say Feb 7 to dwell, I shed tears in my beer.